ahead and get our recording going. So good morning, it's good to have you. So welcome to another webinar. Today we're going to be talking about roles and responsibilities of the Scrum Master. We talked about the product owner last month, and this month we're talking about the Scrum Master. Now, many of you maybe have noticed that the Scrum Master, and well, you're even seeing it with the product owner as well, but the Scrum Master role is evolving a little bit with all the different types of projects that are out. And so what you're starting to see, depending on what book you read, you'll notice that they'll put a little different flair on the Scrum Master. And so as I present today and talk about some of these different roles that Scrum Master will use when they're running a project or working with a project, you'll notice that in some of these cases, it might be a little different than what you're doing. And one of the reasons for that is because of the introduction of hybrid project management. And so those of you who are working in the project and you're working on a project and you're doing some of the Scrum stuff, but you're still having to report in the traditional settings and have traditional structures, that's one of the reasons why you'll see some of these little different flavors of the Scrum Master. And I don't think that's going to change. I think you're going to continue to see this continuously as you see more and more people using Agile and Scrum, and you start seeing people move to some projects needing that rather than traditional. I don't think you're going to lose traditional totally, because traditional is there and it's very much needed for construction projects and projects that have real heavy duty dependencies. But I think on new products and new technologies and these things, which are so exciting right now, that you're going to have an opportunity to see more and more of the Agile stuff happening in your organization. So let's start off with something that we can kind of anchor here, and then we'll build off of this for this morning, okay? So let's talk about product. Many times when we talk about project management, we talk about project and we talk about the scope, all that's fine. And a lot of times we're talking about the product or what we're going to produce at the end of this project. And so product development is a huge deal in the Scrum, the Agile world. And so for the Scrum Master, this is a huge deal as well. We talked about it, like I said, from the product owner the last time, but from this time, we're looking at it from the aspect of what we're trying to produce. And so your Scrum Master's view is not going to be so much on the features as much as the framework and making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'll show you what I'm talking about with that. But the product is sometimes confused with the processes or with the activities. Now, if I'm doing a process redesign of the organization, then my product is my process. So that makes sense. But sometimes even when we are running a project and we're trying to create that project and get it to flow correctly, we sometimes will mistakenly think the product is the activity. And the activity is usually a step in the product. Now, I guess there's exceptions to that, and maybe you're working on something that will be a little different, okay? But in general, your activities are steps to get to the product, and the product is almost like that outcome or the end result or that piece, that product that you're handing off to the customer. Products satisfy the want or the need of the customer, and of course, the product owner is in the best position to understand which products will satisfy these wants and needs, and products bring value to the producer for creating the product and to the customer who receives it. And so if you understand product, then that allows you an opportunity to kind of see what the role of the Scrum Master is going to be in a lot of these different pieces. So product development is exploding. We might actually create something down the road on product and product development because it's just exploding and at such a fast pace, and it's using all these different roles that we're being exposed to, such as your product owner and your Scrum Master. So let's talk about some misunderstandings in the Scrum Master role. And as I said, it's evolving. And so when I talk about this, yours might be just a touch different, and that's okay, because you might be in a special situation with a special project that's evolving a little differently. So one of the misunderstandings, Scrum Masters, we need to understand, Scrum Masters do struggle with their role. Some organizations have created more confusion with extra duties, which are outside of the foundational range of responsibilities. And so a lot of organizations, and maybe you've seen this as well, some Scrum Masters have been called Scrum Masters, but they really were project managers, and now they're called Scrum Masters, but nothing's changed. Now, I'm sure your organization didn't do that, but if you're in that situation, you know what I'm talking about. So everybody got a new role, new title, and but nothing's changed. It's still the same old, same old. Okay. Well, that's going to create some confusion because a Scrum Master and a project manager have very distinct, different roles when you're looking at them in the truest sense. And so sometimes that's going to be a little crazy. Another misunderstanding could be Scrum Master. It's not another name for project manager, and many times they don't have authority over the team, only with the process or the framework. And so sometimes when people start thinking, well, Scrum Master is just a project manager, and so we're talking to the Scrum Master and having them do all this extra stuff, you're really using them out of the real lane that they're supposed to be in. They're supposed to be the process people. They're the facilitator for things, but they're really not on the output of the actual product in many cases. Also, should not have a dual role of Scrum Master and product owner. Many of you maybe are experiencing this where you're the Scrum Master and the product owner, two totally different focuses. Product owners on the features, the functionality, doing what the customer wants them to do. The Scrum Master's on facilitation, also on the process, making sure that they're doing the framework or the processes of Agile and Scrum the way it should be done. Never refines the product backlog. The Scrum Master is not the person refining the product backlog. That's going to be the role of your product owner. And they shouldn't really designate work to the team members. The team members really would not be under their authority. Now, maybe you're in a different situation, and rightly so. Maybe you're in a different situation and the Scrum Master has a lot more duties and a lot more responsibilities. Well, what we're starting to see is that a lot of times people are using the buzzwords, maybe this isn't your case, but they're using the buzzwords, but nothing's changed. It's really a traditional project being run in phases and everybody's calling it Agile, but nothing's really changed. The culture's still the same. The project manager's still in control of everything. Management's still counting those release dates as hard dates. And so nothing's changed to allow that flexibility to be there. And that's one of the challenges that you're probably seeing in that. One of the things I thought was interesting was there is actually an author, and I'll give it to you in the second slide because this is 2 slides here, the ScrumMaster Manifesto. I thought this was really interesting. I don't know how much track this has gotten with all Scrum Masters, but one of the gentlemen, when I was doing the research, actually wrote about this, and I liked it. And so he said they're dedicated delivery improvement. They foster continuous improvement. They also help. They empower coach empower and coach delivery. They nurture the team. They're transparent team helper. And I looked at this and I thought, wow, whoever wrote this really did a good job, because I happen to agree with that. I think they are a coach. I think they are an encourager. I think they are a mentor, and I think they do nurture the team. So all of this was really good. Here's the other side of this, and this is from Smith from Scrum, and as he talked about Scrum Masters, and so they're committed to excellence. They're empathetic, evangelistic guide. They evangelize, Agile and Scrum, resist, persistent, dedicated. They help the team, their awareness and then improvement. So they become aware of something and how can we improve it? And then Agile drive is the driving force that they're supportive to. And so this doesn't fit everybody, obviously, in as a Scrum Master, but I like that idea. And this is part of what I was talking about with how this is starting to evolve. You're starting to see people use the Scrum Master and evolve that role. And of course, you're evolving the role of product owner in the teams and everything else. So does a project need a Scrum Master? And so this is asked a lot of times, even in the seminars. Scrum projects use Scrum Masters to connect the project to the organizational goals, to create fast-paced change, support overall organizational vision, and assist in communication. So if we're using that Scrum Master from this aspect, this is really going to be something that's going to benefit the project, benefit the customer, and all parties working on that. Scrum Masters focus on the methodology, though, the processes, but they possess no authority over the team, the product backlog, or the product owner. And really the violation that we are seeing is in that second bullet point, is that sometimes people put the Scrum Master in and he or she feels that they have to engage with the team in the sense of holding them accountable, or engage with the product owner and making sure that they're doing the right, they're refining the backlog correctly. And a lot of times in the truest sense, that's not really what they're there for. And maybe your situation is a little different, but in the truest sense, that's not really what they're there for. Scrum Master's role before the project starts. So before the project actually begins, your Scrum Master starts getting engaged in some things. Here's a few of those. They understand how the project fits into the organizational goals and alignment. So this means that how our project fits into the program, how it fits into the portfolios, and how it fits into the strategic plan. Many of you have been in my other courses, and so that alignment is really what they're talking about. All of project management is starting to be driven by this alignment. That strategic plan that the organization's creating should be driving every project that we're working on because of that alignment. That you're trying to get those return on investment and those benefits from that. Determine the problem, the goals, or solutions the team is addressing through the project. When you're working on a project, if we're doing it based on new opportunities, then you're trying to get a benefit like that. But in many cases, our project is solving a problem for the customer. And so we're trying to solve that problem. We're trying to address that solution. We're trying to fix something, or we see a problem like many of you do, and you see a problem coming up down the road and you think, okay, if we don't fix this, then we're vulnerable down here. So you're looking at trying to resolve something before it actually happens, or I'll stick with that you resolve something before it actually happens. And then you determine the amount of autonomy the team has in making decisions and moving forward. The Scrum Master might not have the authority, but your Scrum Master might be a recommendation component, or be a mouthpiece recommending to management how much authority. The goal in Agile and Scrum, as you know, is always to let the team have as much flexibility, execution, let them execute and make as many decisions as possible so that that project can go as fast as possible. Speed, execution is the Agile mantra. Traditional, control and command. We want to control everything. So it's two totally different viewpoints. And then which stakeholder is the best escalation path for this project if there's a problem. Now, as we talk about this, once again, your Scrum Master might only have a limited amount of power or authority or knowledge, even though they're playing the role of coach in many cases. And then who's the product owner in this project? Because your Scrum Master and your product owner, they are a tag team, as you already know, with those of you who are doing this, because your Scrum Master is running the process and facilitating things, but your product owner is making sure that the team is working on the right stuff at the right time through refining that product backlog. So it gets very, very much a togetherness there. Now, the Scrum Master, the main role of the Scrum Master is facilitation, promotion of Scrum theories, Scrum practices, and the values. And so that means transparency, that means communication, that means that they're going to be pushing that cohesiveness of that team. He or she facilitates throughout the entire project. They keep the focus on the methodology. And the word methodology that I'm using here, many of you who are the true Scrum people, you know that Scrum's not supposed to be a methodology, but I wasn't sure what else I could call this for our webinar when I was writing this, because it's really a framework. And Scrum is almost adamant, if in many of the texts, that when you're reading it, that it's not a methodology and it's a framework. And I understand that. But in trying to communicate that, I'm thinking, okay, so it's a framework or it's a methodology. Methodology really communicated better the mindset, I thought. And so give me a little grace if you are a true Scrummer and you happen to say, okay, it's really a framework. You're absolutely right. No doubt about it. But methodology seemed to be the only word I could come up with to communicate everything that was there. He or she is responsible for the sprint retrospective. Now, we're not talking about, when it talks about responsibility, it's talking about the facilitation piece of it, making sure that they have it. And that's what your Scrum Master is doing, is making sure that these things are happening. They are a servant leader and they support the team. Now, servant leadership, as you know, has been a huge driver in the past 3 or 4 years with Project Management Institute. And you're seeing it in the new PMBOK 7, you're seeing it in the PMP test that has changed. Servant leadership is a major driver. And that means that if I'm a project manager, I'm serving my team. If I'm a Scrum Master, I'm serving my team. And the goal here is for us to have that cohesiveness as a team to where I'm helping you rather than I've done my job and you didn't do yours, so I'm not worrying about you. But there are some challenges that Scrum Masters experience. And so it's hard to be an observer and not a doer. And sometimes this is where you have to step back a little bit as a coach. You're a coach, you're not a player. And I think the idea of being a coach is tremendous. And we're getting ready to start football season. And of course, the high school has just started football season across the country here. And of course, all our kids are back in school. I know we're shouting hallelujah, so summer's over and the kids are back in school. But it's hard to be an observer and not a doer. And especially if you've got experience and you were really good at being a doer, and now you're in the role of a Scrum Master and it's kind of hands off. And that takes a little bit of adjustment for you, but you can do that by coaching and not doing. Most of your great coaches really in football were great players in some cases. But when you're talking about Scrum and Agile, that's exactly what you're having to do. You're having to coach people how to do it. Different priorities for the Scrum Master compared to the product owner or the team or the project manager. And so hands down, you have to have a different mental shift. And I know for some of you, one of the challenges that you get into is you have so many different projects, and you might be walking out of a traditional project with the mindset of directing and giving direction and making decisions, and now you're a Scrum Master over here in one of your agile projects, and now you're trying to coach everybody to make the right decision rather than tell them. And so that's a little bit of a shift, I know, for some of you. And then authority and control are absent from the Scrum Master role. You don't really have authority. You're kind of a coach. You kind of make recommendations. You give them some insight. You ask questions. You do a lot of those kind of things, but you don't really have authority in its truest sense. Sometimes it's an us or against them mentality can happen because, once again, in the traditional role, you had authority as a project manager, but in Scrum Master role, you're almost like a consultant who makes recommendations, if that makes sense. You're almost like an internal consultant. Your consultant doesn't have the authority over things. A lot of times they're there making recommendations, but the people who work for the organization and management there are the ones who have the authority. Now, let's talk a little bit about selecting the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master has to be a person who has some special skills. Just what we talked about just then of shifting from one project to another, as you know, is going to be difficult. And it's really hard to be able to make that shift. So you have to have some special skills to assist the team and the product owner, and at the same time, not bog them down and not squash their power, their excitement, their enthusiasm. Analyzing the problem, creating solutions, problem solving is a central activity that the Scrum Master is going to be in, because you're asking questions, you're making suggestions to them. It's that coaching and mentoring role. And also committed to the project and the Scrum process, you're trying to make sure we do those things right. Let me give you an example. So somebody comes up to a Scrum Master, do we need the daily stand-up meetings? Now you've got a group of people, and we might have some on the video today that say, well, no, it's a waste of time. It's 15 minutes, that's a waste of time. And you'd be the Scrum Master really encouraging them to do that. Why would you have a daily stand-up? Well, the most central piece of information on this is communication, and it's accountability. Now, many people don't think about the accountability piece. The communication piece is, here's what I did yesterday, here's what I'm working on today, and here's where I had some impediments or roadblocks. And so you're able to talk about very briefly. Now, you want to make sure it's only 15 minutes so that you can then turn around and get back to work. One person told me recently that all of their daily stand-ups, they quit having them because it was an hour-and-a-half meeting. Well, that's silly. That's not the purpose for a daily stand-up. And the Scrum Master should be the one saying, hey, it needs to be 15. And then you have another meeting for the problem solving or dealing with Frank, who's the impediment. I'm sure you don't have any Franks, but occasionally there's a Frank, and so we have to talk to that person and get it kind of straightened out. But the Scrum Master's role would be making sure those things happen efficiently. Nobody can have an hour-and-a-half meeting every morning and just suck down the time like that. That's silly. So commit to the project and Scrum process, availability to work on the project. That Scrum Master has to be able to make those shifts when they're doing this. And going back to that, that servant leadership style, listening, empathy, facilitation, willingness to share the power and the authority with other team members, all of that comes under that umbrella of servant leadership. Servant leaders support the team. They allow them to make the decisions. And you're making suggestions, you're making recommendations, but you're not coming in heavy-handed, if that makes sense. You're not coming in overpowering, if that makes sense. And so you're trying to get them to make that decision. It's exactly what you see happening for those of you who have kids who've gone off to college. You didn't, if you made every decision until the day they went off to college, it was really difficult for that child in college to now start making decisions and being responsible. And what you have done on your side, all those years as you started relinquishing some of those decisions to that child. And now it was protected, it was structured, but that's exactly what it's going to be with the Scrum Master. You're going to give protection and you're going to give structure, and that allows that team and those people to be able to make better decisions over time. Now, I saw this graphic, and this is Ruben, who wrote a book called Essential Scrum, and is really, really good. And he broke it down, and some of these you might be debatable. So this might not be its truest list, but I thought it was good. He said Scrum Master responsibilities would fall in these areas, and I like this. He's talked about coach, mentor, trainer. I like that. Process authority, servant leader, removing roadblocks. Sometimes your Scrum Master is the one out there removing the roadblocks and trying to smooth it out. Change agent. Now, change agent sometimes might actually be falling into the customer role because of what the customer is wanting and what they're driving based on the features, the functionality, the user stories, whatever it is the customer is wanting, and the product owner is putting them in the proper order. And so change agent might be a little bit off, but overall, I liked what he said here, because I do think these are the hats Scrum Master is starting to wear. Now, there's some additional Scrum Master responsibilities, and so let's hit these three: facilitator, communicator, system expert. They are normally expert people, and normally your Scrum Master is somebody who has a lot of knowledge, but that's where that balancing act comes in. They have knowledge, but that they could make the decision, but you're really wanting them to pass that knowledge over to the people, so the people are making the decision, and that's where you're going. So let's go from the aspect of coach. So let's take Ruben's identification of the roles and responsibilities, and let's take a look at it from this. So the Scrum Master as a coach, coaching standardized performance-driven activity. It directs another person on the job with specific job-related skills and understanding. Coaching allows the Scrum Master to focus on specific tasks to master a technique or a skill. It increases communication with the product owners, the team members, the management, and does not normally last after the project. And so the relationship is driven by the coach. And so the coach is giving input. And so this is a balancing act to be a coach and have experience, but at the same time, not step on anybody's toes and those type of things. And so in other words, if they're doing something you don't agree with, how can you do this in a diplomatic way without hurting feelings? Because once again, you're not in the authority to make the decision. You're in the authority to coach, to ask questions, to try to get them thinking, is this the best decision for them? Because every decision is going to have a ripple effect. The mentor is the other side of this. Coach and mentoring, as you know, kind of go together. So mentoring uses many of the same skills as coach. Mentoring normally has a senior person, and that's the reason why the Scrum Master is normally the person selected, that's helping a junior person with skill development and relationship building. We've all seen the person who is great at skills. Man, they can program, they know the knowledge of the system, they know the knowledge of security, but they're not worth a flip in a meeting because they don't have any skills at all to talk to somebody and ask 5 questions without ticking somebody off. They're like a Sheldon, is who I always think about. If you've watched Big Bang, and I've kind of gotten addicted to it over the years, I've watched them all 40 times, but man, it is so, I love Sheldon's character because he doesn't even know that he's making people mad, but you'll find people like that too. They say stuff that ticks people off and is almost rude, but they don't realize it. That wasn't an intention of theirs, but that's just, they're not the people side, they're more the technology side. And then you'll be blessed to be able to have people who are both, and they have both of these. And so the relationship is driven really by the mentee because they're wanting to learn how to do some things. They're wanting to be able to grow and experience some of these things. The role of the trainer, very important role. And you'll notice a lot of times your team is going to be in the same role. So sometimes this is a multi-hat kind of thing because your team is going to be training a lot of times the customer when you're talking about the handoff section of your project. So the trainer is really an important role because training is an activity. It focuses on skill and talent development. Development expands knowledge, and training takes the knowledge and it helps apply it in a usable manner for creating more robust performance. So you're looking for better performance over here, but you are transferring knowledge. But here's the thing about training. Training requires encouragement because people have never heard it before, never done it before. They're discouraged with how much they don't know sometimes. If you've gone through your PMP boot camp with someone, You know exactly what I'm talking about. You just flat out feel stupid when you're sitting in that boot camp, because the boot camp is an international certification and it's talking about so many different things. And yet what you're reading there is not the norm for the projects that you have run. You feel silly and you start thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. I can't pass this test. And so you have to battle that all the way through all of these things. And then the role of process authority. The process authority, many of you just use the same processes for all projects. And so if you're looking at Scrum compared to traditional, and you've been used to running traditional, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're having to think about the process and where we're going to bump into some of the process challenges as we're trying to run Scrum or Agile in this setting. So who has control over the process and the process that to use in the project? ScrumMasters control and drive the methodology, which supports authority for the area, and product owners keep the authority over the features, their orders, and the priority with the customer. So your product owner represents the customer's point of view and their features and what the outcome is for the project. Your product owner is the process, the facilitating type person for this. And so processes have to be talked about. Those of you guys who are doing, you men and women who are doing hybrid, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We can do some hybrid, but then some processes absolutely have to be talked about with management, because that process is so hard and fast and it fights against everything associated with Agile. What about the role of the servant leader? Maybe it's new to you. Some people don't buy into servant leader of being able to support. It's exactly where everything's going. All your millennials are starting to catch on to this, and they are liking this because, once again, it supports a real strong viewpoint. But servant leadership focuses on serving people within the team. I'm there to help them be successful. It also looks for places where the team is struggling, takes steps to remove it. Servant leaders means it's not about you, it's about others. And so it's taking it off of us, and we're looking at how can I help you, and what can I do to service you is really what it is. And so this is why the mentoring and coaching is really coming back into kind of the mainstream with your millennials, and then your Zs that are coming into the workplace will tap into that, it looks like, too, because they're much more open to that coaching and mentoring than many of the baby boomers. Many of the baby boomers, the coaching was looked at as a performance challenge or performance initiative because you were not performing. So we coached that person. Well, that coaching actually got such a bad term for all of those type of things. Now, Scrum Master in the role of removing roadblocks. This is not the only person who would be in charge of this. It might need to be escalated to management, but they would remove roadblocks that some of the team has talked about in that daily stand-up. And if they can't do that, or don't have authority to do that, or don't have the relationship to do that, then obviously management would be brought in. But they focus on keeping others working. Once again, execution is everything. And so you're allowing people to work, to do the most important work at all time. That's why these things are prioritized. These features are prioritized like crazy. And so roadblocks could be lack of resources, wrong resources, little or no support, conflicting ideas, conflicting solutions, no timely feedback. So your Scrum Master is working to try to help with some of those. And so it could be other people working too, but your Scrum Master could do that. And then what about the change agent? Change agent is an interesting role, and a lot of times you get a lot of criticism by being a change agent. So projects create changes to systems, to processes, even to the entire organization. And all of us have had to deal with some of those changes. But if you're driving that change and you're in that Scrum, you're running that Scrum project or that Agile project, then you're running something that goes against the grain of some of these processes and culture, and you're shifting the paradigm. And that's not a great place to be. Everybody's an expert on what you should have done or what you shouldn't have done. Let me say it like that. And so you're trying to make good decisions. So Scrum Masters have to understand the depth and the order of the amount of change happening, and you have to understand what the people are looking at it through their eyes. What's this going to do to them, their job, their role? And sometimes that's where we get some of that resistance. Scrum Masters drive change. This might include information from beyond the team, from upper management, passing it down. This might be from the customer, helping out the product owner. The Scrum Master is just really trying to be that helper in as many things as possible. So that main role of facilitator, being able to facilitate to where we can talk about these things. The Scrum Master oversees the methodology. He or she must facilitate the meetings and to make decisions. Facilitating must be neutral, allowing both the team, the product owner, and the customer, if needed, to discuss the critical topics. And where a lot of times in a traditional team, you're the project manager and you're facilitating, you still have authority power. A lot of times you still have trumping power. You can trump something that people are saying because of certain things. In this setting here, you probably are not wanting to do that very often, because you want that team making the best decisions possible, and you're wanting them to be able to decide and move on. So facilitating allows that high contact and engagement on any topic to move forward. And that's what the role of the Scrum Master is. How can we get a decision made or get information so that they can move to the next point? Once again, speed, advancement, all of those are part of this. And so this reinforces this last piece here of what we've been talking about. Communication would be a huge umbrella for all of this as well, but it's there. And so various stakeholders need information on the progress of the project, as well as decisions for new product features, determine the sequence of reports, reporting. Each stakeholder needs to stay informed, creating Kanban boards, information radiators, and of course, information radiators, high visibility, low tech, so people can see what's happening with the project, discussing any special reports or anything that they need outside of the normal framework. Your Scrum, that's what your Scrum Master is there for. They're trying to help, and that seems to be a great support for them. Now, you might use your Scrum Master totally different. And so I'm not saying yours is wrong. Yours might be perfect for your project. But in general, this is what we're looking at. And then that system expert that the Scrum Master many times is, they bear the responsibility of understanding the bigger picture, the macro. So the macro view helps the Scrum Master adjust the methodology because they understand it's driving the strategic plan. They see the bigger picture. Once the macro view is understood, the micro view is easier to focus for features and deliverables. Your product owner is already in the micro. Your team is probably in the micro. So the thing is being able to, as a Scrum Master, to step in and to drive them in the direction of understanding how the micro, this feature, is fitting into the strategic objectives can help at times. So the Scrum Master in the role of system expert is actually working in all three of these. They're working in the system. They understand what's happening in the enterprise level, but they also understand the relationships because they need to be a relationship person. And that relationship is going to carry over in the team because they're coaching some of the team in some of these different pieces. So you're talking about somebody that needs to be high relationship oriented. I mean, somebody says, well, I don't want to hold everybody's hand. You are a hand holder in some cases with the Scrum Master, where taking the people from where they are to where they need to be. Now, over time, you shouldn't be. Over time, coaching, mentoring, training, these folks are going to be making better decisions. So great Scrum Masters seem to work at all three levels, and they can change gears just like that. And so some of you that are Scrum Masters that are really getting the accolades, that's what you're doing. You're whether you're talking to upper management, you can communicate, or I can go over here and work with someone else and communicate as well. So the Scrum Master is not accountable for product delivery. And sometimes that's the piece that gets on their shoulders by making them the project manager or making a project manager a Scrum Master. They think this is them. It's not really them. The output of the product is on the team. The output of the product is on the product owner for ranking the order of features or the user stories or story points, whatever they're ranking for the team to work on. So product owners focus on the current requirements. Scrum Masters work to prevent the team from taking on more than they can finish in a sprint. So as you know, that in Agile and in Scrum, at the end of each sprint, so let's say it's 4 weeks, at the end of each 4 weeks, you're supposed to be handing something off to that customer. And so the thing is, you're not supposed to be carrying that over and over and over again, because that's almost like a phase. And that's why I said some teams call themselves Scrum or Agile, and many times they're running things like a phase. They did part of it in phase one or sprint one, but they didn't hand anything off to the customer. And in sprint two, they did a second part of it and a lot of hard work, but they didn't hand anything off until sprint three for the customer to use. That kind of fights against the whole Agile mindset, because you breaking it down smaller to where you can give something to that customer in piecemeal so they can start working with that feature. That's really the mindset and the reason why people love Scrum and Agile so much. So there's some pitfalls for combining the Scrum Master with other roles. So the 3 roles, Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Team, that you can actually be taking away from what they're really doing of helping solve some of the problems. So combining 2 roles creates role conflict, role ambiguity, and conflict of roles can be one of the reasons why the project is struggling, because we've got that person wearing too many hats. And so that would be something to take a look at with that individual. Now, Scrum Master's goal should be also in leading that team to make their own decisions and self-organizing. Now, this would be the epitome of the evolution of what we're talking about here. Self-organizing teams don't need help. They're making decisions. They have the knowledge. They have the training. So Scrum works best when the team gets to a point to where they're functioning much more on their own rather than somebody having to walk through things with them. Self-organizing teams make team members more accountable when they create their own solutions, their own ideas, take on their own work. And the ability to increase efficiencies, create stronger processes goes faster with self-organizing teams. Why? They're making the decision. They're talking to their teammates, and they're calling the shot. They're not having to get 5 signatures on something. So they're able to move forward with those things. And earning trust as that Scrum Master, and that's going to be a huge piece. People have to trust us because we're not interfering. We're there to help. So it's something that has to be earned. It's not demanded because of a position. Trust requires a foundation of telling the truth, building relationships with all the team members, not just a couple of people that we're buddies with. Being a good role model, we're acting right. We treat people nice. We treat people right when speaking to others. When we behave in a group, how do we behave? And then when wrong, we are willing to admit that we were wrong about something. And sometimes this is something that's kind of difficult for some of us to say, hey, I was wrong. Your idea was better than mine, or I was totally off on that. And so admitting a person's wrong will set the tone for others to be willing to do this. And this is going to be the maturity level of that self-organizing team, is to be able to do that. Now let's talk for just a second a little bit about some tools here, tools that Scrum Masters consistently use. Scrum Masters, when they're facilitating, they're trying to help make decisions. Remember, the goal is execution. So that means you're mapping it out. You might be doing mind mapping in order to be able to brainstorm something. And so if you're not familiar with that, there's software, free software that you can download for mind mapping. Voting styles is used tremendously with the Scrum Master. Why? Because you're trying to get people to vote and you're trying to reduce the potential of bias. So let's talk about, we're going to talk about all these: Fist of Five, Fibonacci, Roman voting, and planning poker. Now, many of you I know do this. I've seen you do it in meetings, and many of us have talked about this in other classes, but just to make sure. So the Fist of Five is what we're looking at right here. So if I hold my hand open with all 5, that means I totally agree. I could do a 3. That means I'm kind of in the middle. And if I do this, that means I do not agree with this at all. And so that's what the Fist of Five is. And so it's very common in the Agile world. And so if a participant holds up 2 fingers, they're only mildly agree. And you want to be able to facilitate that as that Scrum Master and ask some questions. The Fibonacci is something that many of you will use. And so this was created back in the 1100s. Fibonacci was actually a mathematician. And so it's calculated by adding the current number with the previous number. And so when you realize how they come up with the numbers, it's not that big of a deal. So you start with number 1, 1 and 2, and then 2 and 1, take the 2, which is your number, and add it to the 1, that gives you 3. And then what you'll do is that you'll add 3 and 2, which gives you 5. 5 and 3 gives you 8. 8 and 5 gives you 13. And so that's how they come up with the sequence of Fibonacci. So it's no big deal. Many of you who order Fibonacci cards, you will have other cards that are in there to jumpstart that. I just listed a few of these depending on what you ordered. You might have a 25 card, a 40, a 50, 100 for fast estimating. And so the purpose behind the card is to reduce bias. And so here's how it works. We're sitting in a circle, and so we're trying to estimate a user story. And so we pull out a card, nobody sees it, it's laying in front of me. And so we go around the circle and we flop our card over to say how long we think that user story or that feature will take. And so that's all it is. And so it's to remove bias. And so you're looking at your low card, why do they think we can do it in 8 hours, and why is this one think it's going to take us 80 hours? And it creates that communication. And of course, as a Scrum Master, you're facilitating that. Roman voting is very common, very quick. It's based on the simple form of raising a thumb. So if I'm positive on it, thumbs up. If I don't like it, thumbs down. And now they've come up with where we go in the middle, and that means I'm kind of in the middle on it. I haven't heard enough to convince me, but I haven't heard enough for me to think no. And so you will see this. And then, of course, no matter what book you look at in the area of Agile or Scrum, they're going to talk about planning poker. So historically, it's designed for software team to participate in estimating the activity, the user story, the deliverable, whatever it is. And so it gives you an opportunity, and many people you might write something down on a sticky of how long you think something is, or you might use the Fibonacci cards, very common in planning poker. But the whole goal behind any of these is not just to use a tool. The whole goal is to reduce bias. Now, here's the reason why we talk about the bias. Your subject matter expert or your most experienced person sitting there many times is the person who will blurt out, well, that's 30 hours. And then all the people who are sitting around who know the experience of that person will just agree and nod their head. And that's what you're trying to break away from, to where one person's not just estimating everything for us and we agree and support it, but to where we can talk about what that estimate should be. So it balances out the estimate, keeps one person from controlling all the estimates, and they could be high or low, and it allows those who do the work to estimate the duration. And that's where Agile and Scrum shine. The person who is estimating the work is the one who's going to be doing the work. That allows them, with that expertise, to realize, man, I didn't put enough hours in this. It was much more complicated than I thought, or I put way too many hours in it. So they're going to be evolving in their estimating abilities and get much more precise as time goes on. Now, here's some Scrum Master best practices. First off, as we talked about this, trying to be patient, be an active listener, let the team make the decision, not the Scrum Master. Do not commit the team or the product owner to things without their approval. Build team cooperativeness with each member and collaboration. Protect the team from committing to more than they can accomplish. If it sounds like they're trying to do so much, then you're once again, you're giving that input. Do not become a rule monger on Scrum principles and guidelines. Some Scrum Masters, I mean, they are like I said, the rule monger. They're just in your face over what everything has to happen. Look, this is a live team and a live project. And I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of projects that run perfect. And I bet you don't either. And sometimes you're doing the best you can do with what you have, and we have a little hiccup. And so we're trying to fix that. And that's going to be true even with some of your Scrum projects. There's no silver bullet. So let's break these best practices apart real quick here. Being patient and an active listener. Scrum Masters have to learn to be an active listener, and they monitor 4 things: the words, the tone, the body language, and facial expression. Good facilitators do that all the time. So you're doing your best to be able to calm something down and to be able to move it along. They allow the team to make decisions. Now, this is a struggle for some people, but one of the strengths of Scrum is allowing the team to estimate the work and make decisions on that work. Now, obviously, they're working with the product owner who is ranking that work, but the team is doing the estimate. Team decisions build the consensus, the cohesiveness, and also team members support their decisions more than following the decisions of someone else. And they're going to grow from those decisions. Even their bad decisions, they will grow from. Number 3 would be never commit the team to work without permission. So as a Scrum Master, once again, you're not a project manager, and so you're not the authority over them, you're working with them. So Scrum teams are not assigned work. They volunteer or they pick work they believe in as a priority. Now, you might not be to this place with your Scrum teams, and that's okay. Maybe your Scrum teams are assigned work. Frank, this is what you're doing. So maybe they are. But the point is, this is that evolution we're talking about. So giving Scrum team work reduces their chances of growing and becoming more functional or effective. And then number 4, build team cooperativeness and partnership. Team members do not work as lone wolves. And that's what you're fighting against. Just let me have my job and I'll do my job and leave me alone. That's not going to be Scrum, or that's not an Agile person, because they need to be able to talk with other people. So teams collaborate and they cooperate, and you learn from each other. And listen, we're going to make better decisions together than we are one-on-one. That's what's going to happen there. Now, number 5, protect the team from too many commitments. Sometimes this is difficult. Sometimes you've had team members who are very aggressive or assertive, and they feel very comfortable with what they've agreed to, but it might be too much for that sprint. And that's what you're looking at. Can we hand something off to the customer in that sprint? And so that's why you're making suggestions, or you're asking questions. So they estimate the work for each sprint, determine how many features or user stories and story points to determine. Some teams are optimistic, especially when they don't know a lot. They could be very optimistic, thinking something's relatively simple. And Scrum Masters are actually will work with the team to verify the correct level of work or productivity, but they're not making the decision for them. And then number 6, they guide the team, and they do not be a rule monger on Scrum. Quoting the Scrum guide to everybody and quoting somebody's book or the Agile standard to somebody is just going to tick everybody off, and they're going to hate your guts. So let me just tell you ahead of time, don't do that. The rules are evolving right now, especially on Agile and Scrum. And so you're seeing all kinds of different flavors of Agile and Scrum come out. And the part of it is going to be really good for the industry. Scrum Masters can lead others through the Scrum guide. They can reinforce the framework, but understand that there's a lot of different people who are looking at it from a lot of different ways. Some of it will be good and some of it will not. Just like you've seen hybrid come out of traditional, you're going to see Scrum continue with it being the #1 Agile methodology or framework that's out there. You're going to see Scrum continue to evolve, and they're going to use pieces of it in some of these evolutions that come out through there. Now, the last little piece here that we're talking about for under best practices is the Scrum Master maturity model. The maturity level of a Scrum Master is going to vary, obviously, based on experience and competencies, and you want your Scrum Masters to be growing as well. Some are going to be new to Agile, but they're strong in traditional, and they're going to struggle in some of these areas, and that's okay. That's part of that evolution because they have a limited understanding of Scrum, how to work Scrum in those situations. Scrum Masters with a lower maturity can still bring value to the customer, to the Scrum team, but their tools and their abilities are going to grow over time. Everybody has to start someplace with Scrum, with Agile. All of us have. All of us did. You remember your first Scrum, first Scrum project or your first Agile project, and so you spent your whole time comparing what we're doing in Agile to the traditional, and that's just it. It's okay. Everybody's evolving in these areas here. Now, that maturity model kind of goes in those 3 levels. The novice level, no team experience, maybe first-time Scrum Master, limited facilitation skills. They maybe aren't certified in really anything, and they maybe have served on an Agile team as a member a time or two. Really kind of low skills. They're good people. They work hard, but they don't know a lot. That's okay. And then you get in that middle section, maturity, maturity, and they're competent. They understand how to coach. They understand how to facilitate. They maybe are certified in Scrum or in Agile at this point. They facilitate very well, and they understand the Scrum framework. This is probably where many of your people are right now, or where you're trying to get them to. And these are going to be workhorses for you in the Scrum and Agile world, and they're going to be wonderful for you. And then, of course, you're going to have some folks who are absolutely going to hit the maturity of be very proficient. And you know what? Some of these folks are really going to be excellent in the area of coaching, training, because they are so proficient in these ways. And then some of you out there that I already know that's on the call even today, some of you just have the people skills. I mean, you were born being able to smooth things out. And so some of that is just you. You just are a nice person. You're able to communicate to people. You come across nice. People like you. Those people, absolutely. The relationship, they're awesome in the relationship. I mean, even on a bad day, they've got more skills than most of us. So they're awesome. So they're experienced in the framework. They maybe hold several certifications. They maybe are leading some of the teams out there, and they maybe have served on a tremendous amount of teams, 5 or more teams. And so those skills are there to where they can transpose those over to other people very quickly. Now, Scrum Masters, they deal with dysfunctional teams at times, and this is sometimes one of our challenges. A dysfunctional team can include many dysfunctions, but Scrum Masters have to learn how to handle dysfunctional people, people who throw a temper tantrum in the team, people who want to be boss, people who try to bulldoze over people. We've all been there. Don't shout out names, okay? But we've all been there. And so all of these type of people, I mean, part of that, they're people is what it is. But the Scrum Master has to be able to deal with it, to calm it down, to control it. Determining how deep the dysfunction is in a team is sometimes a challenge, but sometimes these dysfunctions, remember, didn't get there overnight. They got there over a period of time. And some organizations maybe have a dysfunction. And as you start Agile and Scrum, that dysfunction shows up. And so you have to be able to deal with that some. Now, there is a book out, Lachini wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and he names 5 different dysfunctions. And so I didn't go into depth on this, but I liked it. I wanted to give you a resource. Absence of trust. Don't trust them. Don't trust management. Don't trust anybody. They're just trying to get our job. They're trying to mess things up. I mean, if you're in that organization, you know what I'm talking about. They distrust anything. Fear of conflict. I don't want any conflict. And so, we try to walk down the middle and keep all conflict from happening. And nobody wants conflict. Lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, inattention to results. And so, in other words, let's not talk about measuring anything or no metrics. We just work real hard. And the point is that you're going to need metrics on the Scrum side, just like you have on the Agile side or on the traditional side. So Scrum Masters have to educate the team about dysfunctions sometimes and move away from the past. Whatever those dysfunctions were of the past, listen, you can't allow dysfunctions to be the dominator in a team. You've got to be able to move it away from that in order for your team to be super productive. And then Scrum Masters as that facilitator. How are your communication skills in getting people to talk and getting people to shut up? Because you're doing both, aren't you? You're trying to get quiet people to share some of their good ideas that they just don't share, and you're trying to get the motor mouths not to dominate everything. So facilitation requires discussion so people can make a difference, can make a decision. Scrum focuses on strong facilitation from the Scrum Master and usage of communication to create solutions. Teams must understand the importance of meeting and making decisions and moving the project along and gain feedback from the team. It's going to increase productivity. All this is important. Now, we haven't discussed the whole issue that comes up so many times on co-location. Many of you I know couldn't co-locate if you wanted to, but co-location, it happens for many of these to facilitate face-to-face rather than virtual or rather than sending an email. And so all of that has to be taken into account as well. Scrum Masters also help with decisions because they are facilitating. Did we understand it? Are we understanding the information? Asking the right questions. They assist people in discussing the most important topics, tools such as parking lots. Let's put it on a parking lot so we don't talk about it right now. Are you ready to vote and decide what we want to do? Do we need to discuss it more? Do we need to research it more? And many of you already have those skills and are using them in traditional. You're going to use some of those same skills also over on the Agile side. Scrum Masters are going to be conflict managers. We hate it, don't we? But conflict is part of project management. So because Scrum Masters are facilitating meetings, you're almost instantly going to be pushed into the role of conflict manager. And so you've got to be able to say things softer and to be able to soften something that has come up, to be able to calm it down so that we can talk about it. You can't be part of the problem. You have to be part of the solution. So conflict managers have to help the parties work through the conflict, talk about it, separate the ideas so that we get the real stuff out on the table and then be able to make a decision. It requires strength to see both sides. And in the middle of facilitation, you're trying not to tip your hand that you agree with one side more than the others. And yet, with all that we've said about this, Scrum Masters are still expanding. They're expanding, they're growing, meetings grow, you're learning new skills. And once again, the flavor of the Scrum Master, the Agile, the Scrum roles that are out here are still evolving because, once again, it's relatively new. Scrum Masters are valuable to an organization, they're valuable to a team, but we can't be heavy-handed. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we have to look at. Now, let me bring this to a close here in the next couple of minutes and talk about something. This month, you should have gotten in the email from Kim, you should have gotten a PDF with the called Webinar Plus, and that's going to be the outline for what we're talking about today. If you remember last month, we said that we're moving all of our webinars to this, to where every webinar would have an outline, a 3 or 4 point outline, and you'll have like 3 or 4 questions about that topic. That's to help you use some of this with your people. Many of you were already doing this and you were having meetings. And so this morning, this is a live meeting. So hi, everybody. It's good to have you. So I'm glad you're watching us. But I hope that helps you. And that's what we have tried desperately to do, is to give you a tool that would help you in those areas. And so if you saw the PDF but you didn't think anything about it, that's what it is. And when you get the link from Kim, you can have the PDF on there as well, so that you can show the video later if you need to, and you've got the PDF and you can copy that and hand it out to your people if you're using it for them. So all that's free. It's not costing you anything, and that's going to be part of all of our webinars for the future. You're going to have 2 items coming to you. You'll have the monthly video, and then you'll also have the outline, which is outline discussion questions in one PDF. And so you'll have that. Next month, we're going to be talking about in our webinar, transitioning from waterfall to Scrum. This was a hard one to write, because most of us don't transition all the way over. And so we're in that hybrid thing. But we're going to talk about it a little bit and give you some ideas on October 14th. And then November webinar, we're going to be talking about building a high-functioning agile team. And so this topic is going to be kind of fun, because we're trying to have a high-performing team. And so we'll be able to bring several ideas in and hopefully be able to encourage you a little bit in this particular area. Our mastermind group, many of you have been part of our mastermind of 2022. Our last one starts next week. I think we have 45 people that are going to be in this. This is a free 1-week mastermind group. You get 5 PDUs for it. You have a few videos to watch. You have about an hour a day for those 5 days of some stuff to do, and helps people get their have an understanding of what the PMP test is about, but it also helps them be able to fill out their application or start their application, and to start getting all that material lined up so that they can fill it out and when they take their PMP boot camp and get that information sent in. But this is our last boot camp. It's free to anybody who wants to join. And so it starts on Monday. And so Kim I think we're up to 45 people will be in that. And then we have 2 final PMP virtual boot camps, October 24th through 27th, December 5th through 8th. Those are the final boot camps of the year. And we haven't planned those for 2023 yet. We will probably plan 6 virtual PMP boot camps, one every other month. And so we'll be coming out with dates on all of that for you at that particular time. So that kind of brings you up to date. Now, let me tell you one other thing that I'd like to get from you. We are starting to, I'm starting to write curriculum for my webinars for 2023. And I would like some suggestions. If there was a topic that you would like for me to talk about for our 1-hour webinar. And so I'm not guaranteeing I'll talk about it. So I don't want to make that kind of commitment, because it might be something that that's beyond the entire group of the several hundred that we have every month. But I would love to see a recommendation from you of a topic or two. So just send an email to me if you would, and let me see some of these topics. And if it's something that I think that the entire group would benefit from, I'll be glad to talk about it. And I'll write about it, and we'll add it to our webinar. Okay. So let me thank you so much for being here this morning. And so I really appreciate your time every month and being part of this. I appreciate so much that you're willing, those of you who are on here every month that are live. I really appreciate also all the hundreds that watch this by video every month. And so I hope the handout and the video helps you every month. So anyway, thank you so much for being on here. God bless you guys. And I'll see you guys next month. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being on here.